This is Reasonable Doubt with your hosts, Mark Garrigus and Adam Carolla.
Yeah, get it on. Got to get it on. A church, get it on. And welcome to the best hour or so in the universe. It's Reasonable Doubt. I'm Adam Carolla. It's Mark Garrigus in... Where are you, Mark?
I'm in New York City, and I feel bad because I hear you're flying commercial in a short period of time.
I am not only flying commercial, I'm flying Southwest, so it's a notch below commercial. I just got done flying Delta first class. And Mark, for a guy who runs his own miniature airline or Air Force like you do, there's never been a better time to be a captain, because I just got done flying to Nashville on Delta first class, and first class, the dinner was a box. The box, and there's no hyperbole here. The box, the box had a sack of Wheat Thins in it. It had a sack of goldfish in it. It had a sack of Skittles in it, and that was basically the content of the box. First class. Sack of. Did you get the pasteurized cheese spread? Yes,
or whatever?
Yes. Basically a smudge. I basically was. The container had about as much as the average seagull shits on the average windshield at the seafood restaurant, of weird pasteurized smoked Gouda that you could spread. There was enough to spread on 2.5 Wheat Thins, and that was it. And I said, "Is this?" It's just my thing is like I tweeted out, is this first class or is this first grade?
And this, what you're looking at, Ace Man, yes. You can watch along at youtube.com/Reasonable Doubt Podcast, was Mark responding to someone who was commiserating with you, and he's talking about our upcoming live show on October 3rd, the live Reasonable Doubt, and Mark's talking about the joy that we'll be flying private.
Oh my God, yes. I cannot wait.
Yes. And our captain will not be serving back. Can you imagine Vinny being given that box of Wheat Thins, pasteurized cheese, and Skittles? Well, Vinny would go nuts. He'd be screaming Jesus H. Christ all over the place.
It was a miniature hamper filled with carbs. Let's not forget goldfish. Wheat Thins and goldfish were in there. I mean, it's really like snack time at a special needs preschool. That's really what it was. And then first class night flight to Nashville. It's a 4-hour flight. I said, she said she came around. She said, would you guys like a drink? I said, yeah, I'd like a drink. I'd like a vodka soda. She said, oh no, we don't. No liquor. I said, what do we got? She's like, well, you have a plastic bottle of wine with a screw top, which always says extravagant. And,
right, exactly.
And
no wine before it's time.
Or domestic beer. And I said, well, you know what? I think I may have a Tito's bottle Traveler in my backpack somewhere. So why don't you just get me a glass of soda water and put some lemon or lime in it, and I'll flavor it with the Tito's. And she said, oh, we don't have lemon, we don't have lime, we don't have a glass, we have a plastic cup, and we don't have soda water. I said, you don't have a soda water on first class? She said, no. I said, how about, do you have Sprite? Do you have Coca-Cola? I said, no. I said, well, in first class, you couldn't get a Coke or a Sprite? No. I said, what do you have in first class? She goes, we have water, we have a plastic bottle of wine, and we have a beer. I said, wow. First off, my son would kill himself. Sonny would kill himself. I said, you have to go 4 hours without a Sprite. He'd go flush himself down the toilet.
Hey, Gary, do you have, because Adam just mentioned preschoolers, do you have that Bill Barr tape about the quote, he's caused a firestorm because I forget where he was, but he was speaking, and I'll criticize part of his speech, but he had a pretty good line in part of his speech where people were giving him grief for interfering in the prosecutorial process, and I believe he said something to the effect of, "I'm the Attorney General. The assistant United States attorneys work for me. And if you think in a federal agency, I'm going to leave the decisions to the underlings, as opposed," he says, in a federal agency, he says, "that may be a great strategy for the Montessori school and preschoolers, but not for a federal agency." And I thought that was a great line. But then he had this shit all over himself, speaking of seagulls, and compare lockdown orders to slavery. And they said, of course, that's what everyone ran with because that's so absurd. But he really had some good points in there. And I just don't understand why, when you're ahead on points, why you end up stepping in it, you know?
Well, you can't. First off, you can't equate slavery to slavery these days. Like, just leave slavery alone. You cannot compare anything to slavery. You shouldn't compare much to Hitler or much to Nazi Germany. Just leave it alone. Nothing good ever comes out of the other end when you put that grist into the mill, right?
Yeah, because first of all, it's such a false comparison, and second of all, you can't hear the words once you go there, and it's just idiotic.
I completely agree
for him to make that. But it's an interesting concept, and it comes from the same week. I'm here in New York. Oh, maybe Gary's got it. Look at this.
Yeah, you guys want to hear it? Not the slavery part, but the preschool part.
Yeah.
Name one successful organization or institution where the lowest level employees' decisions are deemed sacrosanct. They aren't. There aren't any. Letting the most junior members set the agenda might be a good philosophy for a Montessori preschool, but it is no way to run a federal agency.
Yeah, I heard all the pundits with their panties in a bunch. These people could go to work for big firms and make tons of dollars. Instead, they put their careers on hold and they go to work in the federal law enforcement or the federal system. And he then insults their integrity. Like, everyone was upset about it. It made me laugh, though.
And I know, and I have to laugh because I agree there are people who generally stay in the federal law enforcement system for their career, and more power to them. They're selfless, serving in the government. But the overwhelming majority on the bell curve want to stay there long enough to win a big case and then jump out and make partner at a large firm. So don't give me this, it's all about public service bit.
So we have this clip, and I always think of you during the week, which is, as I've been saying, I haven't been saying it on this show, but I've been saying it to others who I speak to about this whole lockdown thing and businesses going under and restaurants and little dribs and drabs like Farrar, the public health director of L.A., letting little things sort of slip out, like, well, we'll open up after the election.
And did you see her walk it back after we did the show last week?
No, I didn't see her walk it back.
Yeah.
But
she was trying desperately to walk it back. By the way, I did what we talked about last week. I thank you very much. I incorporated that into the amended complaint. So we'll see what the response is going to be, because clearly there's something else going on here. I mean, it's obvious to me.
Well, I would like.
Anyway, I don't want to step all over your clip. I don't know what clip's coming up.
Okay, well, I'll tell you in a second. But so one of the things I've said to Mike August, when I've sort of said, well, when are we going to? I don't get what's going on with Los Angeles. I don't get why we can't go into a restaurant. I don't get why schools aren't open. It doesn't seem, 2 weeks ago was Labor Day. It was 121 degrees in the San Fernando Valley. Everyone who lived in the San Fernando Valley poured down to Malibu and Santa Monica and all the beach cities. I was in Malibu the whole weekend. I drove up and down the coast. It was throngs of humanity packed onto the beach, maskless. It's been 2 weeks. Where's the surge? Why aren't the hospitals overwhelmed? What's going on? Where's the data? How come I can't go into my local restaurant and sit inside? I don't get what's going on. And Mike August would always say, just wait till after the election, and then you'll be able to go into the restaurant. And I said, is that what's going on? And he's like, yeah, when the election's over. And I said, all right, well, if that's true, there's going to be a lot of emails and some smoking guns out there, just like we talked about Ferrer sort of outing herself into a microphone or being recorded on a conference call. I said, that's going to start cropping up. And when that stuff starts coming up, I think there's going to be some lawsuits by some business owners. And as I was telling him that, this story came out of Nashville. I was in Nashville 2 days ago, so it caught my attention, and I think it was trending, at least on my Twitter. So here's the story. Tell me what you think, Mark, and then look at it through the eyes of an attorney who would be representing a bar or a business in Nashville that was struggling or going out of business.
Breaking tonight, coronavirus cases at Nashville bars and restaurants may have been so low the mayor's office and the Metro Health Department decided to keep it a secret.
Emails between the mayor's senior advisor and the health department reveal only a partial picture, but what is in them is disturbing. Fox 17 News' Dennis Ferrier has the story.
The discussion involves the low number of COVID-19 cases coming out of bars and restaurants, and most disturbingly, how to keep it from the public. On June 30th, contact tracing was giving a small view of coronavirus clusters. Construction and nursing homes causing problems, more than 1,000 cases traced to each category. But bars and restaurants, a total of just 22 cases. Leslie Waller from the health department asked, quote, "This isn't going to be publicly released, right? Just info for mayor's office?" Correct. Not for public consumption, answers the mayor's senior advisor, Benjamin Eagles. 1 month later, the health department is asked point blank about the rumor that there are only 80 cases traced to bars and restaurants. Tennessean reporter Nate Rao asks, quote, "The figure you gave of more than 80 does lead to a natural question. If there have been over 20,000 positive cases of COVID-19 in Davidson and only 80 or so are traced to restaurants and bars, doesn't that mean restaurants and bars aren't a very big problem?" Metro Health Department spokesman Brian Todd asks 5 Metro Health Department officials the question, "Please advise how you recommend I respond." The name at the top of the response is clipped off, but you may find the answer unacceptable. Quote, "My 2 cents, we have certainly refused to give counts per bar because those numbers are low per site. We could still release the total, though, and then a response to the over 80 could be, quote, because that number is increasing all the time and we don't want to say a specific number." Neither the health department or the mayor's office would confirm the authenticity of the emails, but Councilman Steve Glover asked a Metro staff attorney to inquire. Here's the official answer. "I was able to get verification from the mayor's office and the Department of Health that these emails are real," answered the staff attorney.
Okay. They don't want you to find out good news? I thought we're following the fucking science. What happened to the science?
Well, I'm going to tell you, there is something nefarious going on, not just there in the city of Los Angeles. It's clear to me, and statewide, it's clear to me that there is some other agenda, and it's not coronavirus. I'll give you 2 examples in the last week. One is, you know that we've got the V Hotel. Mm-hmm. Twice they've written tickets. In fact, we got the second one today. $5,000 and $10,000 because they claimed there was a DJ there and food and alcohol was served from the bar. And that was in 118-degree heat. And it was some inspector who apparently she just wrote on the ticket, emergency order, violation, emergency order, $10,000. I'll give you an update next week as to what we're going to do with that. Then we're now seeing, after the county and after the challenging on the restaurants that we've been representing, including 2 of mine, and they're now doing other things because they don't like the idea, or there's something is going on. They don't like this alfresco dining. So now they're trying to revoke the alfresco dining and claiming that there's insufficient parking. And realize how crazy that is. They can't do it because they know they don't have the statistics. There aren't any documented statistics or data that supports what they're doing with these closures of restaurants. So what they want to do now is revoke the al fresco and use the idea of no parking, even though the occupancy is at 1/4 of what it was normally. There is something very, very disingenuous, and we're going to keep these lawsuits alive. And at some point, we're going to get past the motions to dismiss and into discovery, and we're going to find these very same things because they're going to be subject to the discovery process. We're going to be able to get the emails. We're going to get people under oath. And that's what their biggest fear is, clearly.
You know, it's so funny because I feel like one of the passengers in one of the planes during 9/11 where I'm going, well, nobody would fly a plane into a building if they were in the plane too, right? I mean, who would do that? Why would you do that? And I keep saying, you know, I was talking to Ben Shapiro last night, who's packed up his whole company and he's moving to Nashville. And I keep saying to him, I don't get what the plan is in California. What is their plan? I keep thinking there must be some method to the madness. There must be something. And nobody can provide an answer other than they don't care. And I'm like, but I don't, what does that mean? Destroy your tax base?
I do not understand what's happening. I have these conversations all week long with the lawyers for the municipalities or the lawyers for the state of California. And you point out the things that make no sense. And, you know, they don't have an answer. There's no rational answer. Basically, the courts need to get involved. I mean, the courts need to, at a certain point, stop being in lockstep. Part of the problem you've got, in my humble opinion, you saw the Michigan decision where the state Supreme Court there wasn't buying what the governor was selling. And I know I'm going to hear, well, it's a blue state. I don't care about blue state. The reason that those Michigan justices were pushing back is they were doing what judges are supposed to do. You're supposed to question when orders are issued. The reason that doesn't happen in California, in my humble opinion, is because Newsom was smart and he delegated part of the emergency powers to the Chief Justice. And so therefore, where's your remedy? Nobody's going to take on the Chief Justice, and she's suspending civil liberties and the rights. And you can say, well, no, she's not doing it. Yes, she is. She is specifically saying that speedy trial rights are just being violated every single week, and nobody even engages on it. They tell you, okay, we'll go to trial. Well, how am I going to go to trial when I got to pick a jury and I want to see somebody's reactions, or I want to cross-examine a witness, and they're like this?
Got a mask on.
You know, you got your mask on. How are you going to do that? You're going to tell me that that's a fair way, that I've got a Sixth Amendment right that isn't being violated there? I have a colleague who took a writ to the California Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal first. And he's in the middle of a trial and he's saying, first of all, I don't want to cross-examine people when they're wearing a mask. I don't want to pick a jury or have the jurors wearing masks. And by the way, he didn't get one vote. He can't even get review from the California Supreme Court. Yet they're telling you can waive, your remedy is waive your speedy trial rights and go on your merry way. That's the kind of stuff we're going to look back on and say what the heck we were doing. What were we doing, and why aren't the courts getting involved? Why aren't the courts at least engaging so we can have a discussion, some kind of a reasoned discussion, because there isn't a reasoned discussion going on in the courts.
All right, so we'll just stick to Nashville. They're going to find some smoking guns. They're going to find out.
They've already got it.
They already got it.
They've got enough right there.
They got enough right there.
There's enough, in my opinion. If you were to file, like we're filing in California, against the municipalities, because those are emails that are from the municipality. I don't know specifically, but it looks like the mayor's office, and I assume that's a municipal office there. And if that's the case, I believe you could fashion a claim against the mayor's office that would challenge not only the emergency order shutdown, but would then, I haven't looked at the Tennessee Constitution, but I presume they've got a takings clause. And if they have a takings clause, you've got a perfect basis to survive a motion to dismiss under a takings if you own a restaurant or a bar there.
Yeah, so I'll tease it and do a spot, but as best as you could come together, and like I said, I speak to some of the smartest people I know from all walks of life, and I keep saying, what's the end game? What's the plan? Is there something insanely nefarious afoot? Is the notion, like we've said, I've talked to Gavin Newsom about traffic for quite some time. He had no interest in solving the traffic problem. And when I tell Dr. Drew, why aren't we more interested in solving the problem? Drew says, oh, the people he talks to want the traffic problem to get worse to force you out of your car. So I go, oh, that's why they're not trying to solve the problem. That's why there seems to be no effort to solve this problem. Is there some version of that that's going on with taxpayers and businesses and restaurants? Is there some version of this that's happening? Because I do not think the data supports any of this anymore. And I have no idea why businesses, bars, restaurants are not reopening. And I don't know why people like the mayor of Nashville don't want it to reopen either. That's a tax base. You do your best at answering that. Let me hit Madison Reed first. Madison Reed, Mr. So Madison Reed has been around for quite some time, and they make hair coloring, and they make it for women. And Lynette loves it, and Gina Grad loves it. And at a certain point, they thought, well, if we're going to make it for women, why don't we make a high-quality product for men? And there you go. Bob's your uncle, Madison Reed, Mr. It's a gray blending, natural color for your hair, for your beard. You can check out the before and after shots. No shoe polish look. It's easy. I've used it a number of times. You just put a little, first you got to match your color up, so go online, and they'll send you a little kit, put a little dollop in your hands, just sort of run it through your hair, and then run the activator through, another little dollop, wait 10 minutes, rinse it off, and you get a natural look, a little less salt, a little more pepper. It's Madison Reed Mr. Right, Gary?
That is absolutely right. Go to MadisonReedMr.com. That's MadisonReedMR.com and use code Carolla for 10% off plus free shipping on your first box. Again, that's code Carolla.
Best effort, best guess, best. Why?
I do not. Look, I am as perplexed as you. I'll give you the perfect example, which is the one I just alluded to. Palm Springs hotels were closed down under state guidance. We sued. We, within days, got guidance allowing the hotel to be open. And specifically at the V, you have the perfect example. There's no elevators. They're 6 feet apart. You're outside predominantly. There are no enclosed hallways. And you can keep occupancy during the summer months at a fairly low rate. And there's not going to be any congregation. Now, mind you, the city of Palm Springs has all of a sudden realized they've got an 80, I forget what the shortfall was. I'm going to, beat me up if I'm wrong, but it was somewhere in the neighborhood of $80 million. Who's going to be the first person to get cut? It's going to be the governmental first responders, either police or fire, or it's going to be City Hall. And so we get the tax base going again by opening the hotels. We led the charge. I didn't charge them for anything. $76 million. There you go, Gary. Right there. So, and that was June 4th. So we get it. I get it open. Do you know what my reward for this was? They fined the hotel a penalty and interest for not filing a zero revenue tax return and would not waive it. And I said, You mean you ordered me closed down, and because I didn't file a return on time, when you're telling me nobody can go into the place and nobody can, and I'm keeping people employed, by the way, and you're telling me that you're then going to find you're not going to waive it, and I don't even get a fuck you. They say, no, we'll give you the fuck you. You can pay the fine or interest, or we'll revoke the permit. So explain to me how, and now they're doing summarily $5 and $10 grand at a time. It obviously 6 months from now, that city is going to be in a world even more of hurt. And you have to say to yourself, what are they going to say then? What's the excuse going to be then when there's some when somebody has to start cutting jobs and doing whatever else, as opposed to fostering the business community? I have no idea. I can't figure it out. I'm with you. There's no end game that makes any sense.
I mean, there is a sort of a movement afoot to just in amongst some groups to just kind of tear it down, and it always feels to me sort of nihilist, like just tear it down. Just whatever is shall not be a year from now. And it's like I don't get what the end game is. And I also, as I said, I'm just sort of fresh on my mind of Ben Shapiro. And Ben Shapiro's a lot of things, but he ain't dumb. And he's really, if you get in the same room with Ben Shapiro and you talk to him for a decent amount of time, you'll realize he's insanely bright, exquisitely bright. And he's packing it up, and he's out. And I keep saying, he's saying California's going to be gone in 5 years. Like, I don't know what you're doing hanging around. And everyone else keeps going, well, we're going to have some sort of Giuliani-like rebirth, like we're going to bottom out, and then we're going to get a good leader in here, and then we're going to fix things. And he's like, good luck. I don't see it happening. I'm leaving. And so are a lot of people.
This is where I disagree with him. I know. This is where I disagree. And maybe I'm an eternal optimist. I think people are going to see, and I think it's going to happen quickly, how they have been hoodwinked. I think that there's got to be leadership that is going to emerge at some point that is going to point out exactly what is happening. And it's going to happen when my interpretation of this is when you give bureaucrats too much power and their jobs aren't threatened, and there haven't been massive governmental layoffs yet, but there's going to have to be, because you can't just continue. It's the same complaint I've got about what the Fed is doing now on a national basis. When you see the Federal Reserve Chairman, Powell, saying we're just going to digitally print money, I mean, that's never going to work. And it's the same thing here. And I just cling to this, call me Pollyanna, but I cling to the hope that we're going to have that pendulum swing, and people are going to realize that you can't govern this way.
Well, here's one thing that doesn't lead me to sleep well at night. If you take this whole pandemic situation, right, and you have a couple of different entities, you have the news entities, and the news is there. Everyone is looking out for their own best interest, right? So CNN is having a good first 3 quarters of this year because of the pandemic and the fear, and that's why they have the death toll tally board up, and they interview different doctors, and they interview the mom who lost her husband, the wife who lost her husband of 42 years because he ventured outside. I get what CNN is doing. And then there is Trump, and I get what Trump's doing. Trump's trying to play it down. No, nothing to see here. Let's get that economy rolling. I need votes. We need a good economy. Don't be scared. So that's what he's doing. So he's motivated. And CNN.
Right. And there was a report yesterday, Jared Kushner, that there was he was in the room, the president's son-in-law, kind of the shadow advisor, was not really concerned initially on coronavirus because it was hitting mostly blue states. And that, you can understand that. We kill off the opposition's voters, I guess, is apparently that's the motivation there.
Well, I understand motivation very clearly. You have to understand it, because if you want to know why someone would do something you disagree with, then look no further than motivation. It's like, your profession gets accused of this a lot. Why would you defend this person, or why would you join this class action lawsuit? Well, there's motivation. Okay, I get it. I feel the same way about bank robbers. Like, these people want money, so they rob a bank. I don't approve of it, but I understand what they're doing. And so now I understand what the powers that be are doing, the mayor and the city council and the governor. They like exercising their power. They understand we're in a blue state. They understand we have an election coming up. They understand optics. It's all fine. They're doing what they do. CNN's doing what they're doing. Trump is doing what he's doing. Kushner's doing what he's doing. But here's the part that worries me. So many of the citizens are just being led off a fucking cliff without saying a word. And this is the part that worries me, because you are hopeful by saying, well, once things hit this critical mass, once things get bad enough, then the people are going to kind of rise up and we're going to vote in somebody who's competent and so on and so forth. Well, I've been saying for 3 months, I don't get why nail salons, hair salons, and restaurants and bars don't just open. Just open. If you have a hair salon, open up. How come people aren't rising up? In other words, how come and when I tell them to rise up, they all yell at me. This worries me. This is a new chapter in this country. This is a new chapter in this country's history, and this is scary. Bunch of pussies sitting at home, sending out tweets, trying to crush Dr. Drew because he had the temerity to explain you shouldn't panic. This isn't as bad as they're saying on CNN. This is the part that scares me. Not Newsom, not Trump, not CNN. The people turning into fucking pussies. That's what's scaring me.
I don't disagree with you. I know what the motivation is because I talk. I mean, you every single day we get inundated with calls, and I can't even keep up with the number of calls from people who just are at wit's end. They don't know what to do. I mean, it's an awful thing. So many of these business owners, whether it's restaurants or, as you say, nail salons or hair salons, or I've got another one, that mobile pet grooming guy that we represented and finally got him open. Some of them will do the right thing. I was on yesterday with one of the clients who will remain nameless because I didn't get authorization to talk about him, but I kind of described a path for him, and he says, I'm all for it, I'll do it. And that's rare because most people do not want to put themselves at risk. They can't hire lawyers to defend them when, the officious code inspector or the city attorney, or God forbid, the sheriff comes on. Interestingly, the only thing that seems to keep these things in check is when the sheriff, for instance, immediately comes out 2 hours later, like we discussed last week for Halloween, and says, you're not shutting down Halloween. We're not going to enforce that. Boom, that's the end of that. When they try to do the beach order, no, we're not going to enforce it. That's the end of that. And that scares me because basically we're being ruled by the law enforcement. If law enforcement is going to enforce these edicts, then the bureaucrat can do whatever they want. If law enforcement says, no, I'm not going to, then immediately they retrench because they know they've got nowhere to do it. Why did Orange County open up? Orange County opened up because the Orange County sheriff said, I'm not enforcing this BS. Same thing, I forget the county up north, but there was a county up north. Sheriff says, no, I mean, I'm not shutting down my county for 2 cases.
Maybe Ventura County, possibly?
Could have been. I mean, it's just, I could go through and document. I've got them in, we've got reams of statistics on it, but that's what scares me, is that we have basically shifted the interpretation of constitutionality. It's the courts have been co-opted in a sense by law enforcement, because that's the only thing that keeps these people, the executive branch, in check, is whether the sheriff is going to enforce nonsensical orders.
I know it's a very. By the way,
it's crazy.
It's crazy. And look, if you're a bureaucrat and you're saying to the sheriff, "Hey, I need you to enforce X, Y, or Z," and the law enforcement community is looking at you, going, "I'm not going to do that because that's crazy and a waste of our time." Go look in a mirror, would you please? Would you find a fucking still pool of water?
Did you take 8th grade civics? Do you understand what the separation of powers are? Do you understand what it is you should be doing? You're not supposed. I mean, the whole thing is crazy. I don't understand. If I'm a Democratic legislator, they've got the supermajority in the legislature in California. Why aren't the Democratic legislators saying to themselves, wait a second here, we've let Newsom take over our job of legislation? Wait a second here, aren't we a co-equal branch of government? Whatever happened to that idea?
Scary. One last one I'm going to tease, and I'll let Gary look around for it a little bit. The question is Durham, Barr, and Comey, and Strzok, and all the FBI stuff that's going on. There's also looking into Mueller and some of the folks that were on his task force. And there's a newer thing coming in where I think Durham and Barr wanted to take a look at everyone's cell phones, and I think Mueller and a lot of his crew got their cell phones scrubbed. So I'm curious what your thoughts on that are. Maybe Gary can look up some of the official particulars on it and how that works, or is it much ado about nothing? And is it a common procedure just to kind of scrub your cell phone if you're part of a group that's investigating, or is it suspicious that everyone had their cell phone scrubbed when somebody wanted to take a look at their cell phones? We'll talk about that in a second. First, I'll tell you about NetSuite. If you're a business owner, you need to run your business thoroughly, and it can be tough. And you shouldn't make it harder than necessary. There's where NetSuite comes in. Don't let QuickBooks and spreadsheets slow you down. Stop paying for multiple systems that don't give you the info you need when you need it. Upgrade to NetSuite by Oracle, the world's #1 cloud business system. Get visibility and control over financials, HR, inventory, e-commerce, and more, all in one place instantaneously. Whether you're doing $1 million or hundreds of millions in revenue, save time and money with NetSuite. NetSuite. Am I right, Gary?
You are right. Join the over 21,000 companies using NetSuite right now. Let NetSuite show you how they'll benefit your business with a free product tour at netsuite.com/doubt. Schedule your free product tour right now at netsuite.com/doubt. netsuite.com/doubt.
So, Mark, how say you? Do you know that story?
I know that story and a related one. In fact, I was a little, how should I say, disappointed that we were taping so early today, because I have a sneaking suspicion that by the time this drops, there's going to be some indictments or leaking of information. I think that they're very close to indicting the Durham or Durham-related investigation, and it's usually the last couple of times that something has come out, it's usually been on a Friday late afternoon, and I think you're going to see some indictments. I I will tell you that if the reports are true, and I'm not in the weeds long enough to know, but if you are under subpoena, a grand jury subpoena, for instance, if that's what they were doing, and if the phones were scrubbed after that, that's a problem. I mean, that's a real problem, and we'll see. I know that if I had a client who was under grand jury subpoena and he scrubbed his phone, I know exactly what would happen. I mean, you'd get indicted for obstruction. I mean, if you've got the knowledge that there's a bona fide investigation going on and you do something to obstruct that investigation, scrubbing a phone is precisely what that is. There's a lot of federal judges that'll go crazy over that.
Gary, does that appear to be what happened? Because it's unclear.
It's a little, there's a lot of politics in it, but there were apparently 15 phones that were either accidentally wiped, intentionally wiped, lost, destroyed. It looks like a lot of the setups have, if you put in your password too many times the wrong way, they'll automatically wipe, which is a setting that sensitive officials use so that if they lose their phone and someone's trying it, it will destroy all the information. But yeah, it looks like at least 15 phones that were on members of Mueller's teams were wiped before they were submitted. Other phones were submitted in airplane mode with the passcode locked and no passcode provided, so they were just basically useless and wiped. Stuff like that, yeah.
So why Mueller's team? What do you suspect, Mark, or what do you think they think were on those phones?
I think we're going to know pretty soon. I think that it's apparent to me from selective leaks and what reporter questions connected with one of the cases I have, what reporters are asking about. And the leaks obviously are coming from this investigation. And I've got a tangential relationship to that. That's all I'll say. I just think that they're leaking stuff selectively in preparation for an indictment. That's almost always the case. It's been kind of a DOJ, baked into DOJ DNA. When you start getting these leaks, you will see indictments will follow, because this is them kind of sending a forearm shiver out to somebody to get them to be the first one in the door to cooperate. That's what's happening.
Do you suspect that anything substantial will come to fruition before the election?
I believe that there's going to be indictments before the election. Absolutely. I think they've not only telegraphed it, I think they've said it. I think the old expression, October surprise, I think, the DOJ has a policy. You're not supposed to do that supposedly in the 90 days before, but I don't think that that's going to constrain anybody in this case. I think it's clear to me there was a resignation of somebody on Durham's team. Gary could probably find it within the last couple of days.
She's a female who
and a career prosecutor, is my understanding, and resigned supposedly, if you believe what's reported. And
her name is Nora Danahy. Danahy.
Right.
And she just resigned suddenly, correct, Gary?
Yes.
Absolutely. That was back, it was last Friday, September 11th.
Yeah. And supposedly because they were rushing, or she felt that they were rushing the investigation so that they could get indictments prior to the election, which, as I say, has long been verboten under DOJ policy. But by the way, it has happened. There is precedent for it in about 30, 40 years ago. So several times that has happened. I fully expect it now. And like I said, you're seeing reading the tea leaves, all of these selected leaks are designed to get somebody who's not cooperating or on the fence about cooperating to cooperate, because everybody is lawyered up. I'll guarantee you. There isn't anybody who you're seeing these leaks about that hasn't lawyered up. And this is the way that they telegraph to those lawyers. It's the smoke signal, so to speak, that you better get in the door because you don't know who else is going to get in here ahead of you. And by the way, that's kind of the first rule of federal criminal defense. First in the door gets the best deal.
I think Strzok is going in to be questioned minus the subpoena. So I think Strzok agreed to do it. But I'm trying to think of when is Strzok supposed to be go in front of the committee, Gary? Sooner than later. Very soon. Either way, it'll be interesting to get to the bottom of this.
Buckle up. We may have to do a couple of late-breaking RDs because I think there's going to be in the next 5 weeks, I think you're going to see all kinds of legal maneuvering and legal developments. I don't expect this to be a quiet on the legal front leading up to the election.
It's funny because the two guys who are out there chasing this or pushing this is you got Barr, who's like kind of a baby-faced assassin. Like that guy looks like he runs a family-owned jelly bean store. Except, I mean, could you picture that guy in like a pink smock and wearing a paper hat, standing behind the counter of beans, I love my beans, right? Like but he's all fucking business, that guy. And then there's Durham. Durham looks like a stone cold killer. Every picture I see, they just have one picture of Durham. Evidently, only one picture of that guy exists, and it's like, I'm coming for you. That's his look. It's like the look that fighters take to put on the poster. You know what I mean? That's his look. I've only seen one picture of Durham, and it's like, I'm coming for you. I get scared. I get scared when I see it on TV. I'm like, I look over my shoulder. I'm like, I don't know what I did wrong. Yeah, I've never seen any other picture except for that one I'm coming for you picture.
The death stare, right?
Right.
I love it.
All right. Let me get some plugs out. Tonight, Tempe Improv. That'll be me flying less than coach out there. Tonight, by the way, and I'm doing a podcast with Rob Schneider. We'll do a live podcast. I'll do stand-up as well, so come on out to that. And then we're going to Salt Lake City, Wise Guys, October 2nd and 3rd. The 3rd is the live Reasonable Doubt. I think it's a 4 p.m. show. Gary says yes. And look, we're going to be drunk on Don Julio because of the flight situation over there. Look at Barr. Look at Durham. If you were smoking a joint and his guy's picture came onto your TV set, you'd eat the joint. You'd swallow the joint. You do that move like when you're smoking a joint in your car and your stepdad started walking up to the window, just eat it. If you were smoking a joint when this picture of Durham came up, you would eat your joint. Would you not? Am I right?
Absolutely.
I'm coming for you, hippie. You go to AdamCarolla.com for all the live shows. There's stuff coming up in Kansas City and Michigan and everything as well. And, of course, I'm Your Emotional Support Animal. Enjoy that book. Mark, what do you got?
I got, we're still open at Southampton at the Capri Hotel. Go say hi to Mikey at Naya. We've got Casa Tropicana in beautiful Orange County, right by the pier, open there. Go swing by. And Palm Springs, our own little apparent scofflaw. They're open, and the temperatures have calmed down a little bit. So go down there and say hi to the code inspector.
So until next time, Adam Carolla for Mark Garriga saying mahalo.
Thanks for listening to Reasonable Doubt. Tune in next Saturday for an all-new episode.